Executive Director of the IEA. Thank you. Executive Director of the IEA. Thank you.
Dear ministers, friends, colleagues, and to all of you, dear joining us globally on the live stream, colleagues, a very warm welcome to this all of you first joining us globally on the live stream energy transition summit. Warm welcome to this first welcome to everybody. IEA clean, but especially those transition summit who are participating from welcome to everybody. America, North America, especially South America, Asia, who are and participating Oceania, from America. I realize North America timing is not South America, ideal. Asia for you and Oceania. So I appreciate. I very realize much that you making the effort ideal to be with for us you today. So I appreciate in very much opening remarks you making the effort, dear colleagues, to be with us today. I wanted to tell you in this opening remarks, dear colleagues, next 3 minutes. I wanted to where are we worldwide in terms of energy and climate as of in next 3 minutes. One, energy and where climate. Where are we worldwide? Second, in terms of energy I would and like to tell you today why energy we organize this meeting as Second, International Energy Agency. I would like bringing to so many ministers. You why and, we organize this meeting as International Energy Agency. And third, bringing historical meeting bringing 40 ministers around the world together. So let me start. Where are we today in terms of energy and what is IEA is doing? Some of you may know, I am sure many of you do know, that the IEA was the first to call for a sustainable economic recovery. We were the first worldwide. And then we at the IEA, we believe in numbers. We wanted to measure, first of all, what is the impact of coronavirus on energy. And when we look at the numbers, our analysis, we see that the global energy demand declines sharply, very sharply this year. Just to put in a context, 7 times larger decline than we have seen after the financial crisis in 2008, 2009. Huge decline. And so did the emissions. Global emissions see a big decline again, but this decline will rebound or not, we do not know. You ministers will decide with the policies you are going to put in place. So this is the picture we see. Big decline in energy demand, oil, gas, coal, renewables, electricity, everything, and big decline in emissions. We also look at the energy industry, what is happening there. And what we found out is that the global energy investments this year declining about 20%, $400 billion US, which has never been the case in the history, with implications on energy security, implications on the clean energy transitions. Then, as a next step, we said, economy in many countries are going through very difficult times. But also there is another challenge, clean energy transitions, how we can bring this together. We know that you, ministers, are going to make hugely consequential decisions in a very short period of time in terms of the trillions of dollars of recovery packages. So what we have done, working with our colleagues from the International Monetary Fund, IMF, prepared a sustainable recovery plan and focus on the next 3 years, 21, 22, 2023, these 3 years, which energy policies we should focus in order to boost the economic growth, create jobs, and at the same time see a structural decline in emissions and avoid a rebound. So that 2019 remains the peak emissions ever. And we were very happy that the many governments around the world work with us, ask from us how to work together, how to implement this sustainable recovery plan. We also look at different technologies, which technologies are needed in order to accelerate the clean energy transitions. Now here, we also, after this analysis, measuring the problem, putting the exit strategy for the energy and economy, we have prepared several ministerial meetings. Many of you have kindly participated to those meetings. I thank you very much. One of them was with my good friend, the Danish minister, the Minister Jorgensen. We organized an economic recovery. Thank you very much, Dan, for that. Another one with on the investment. How do we mobilize the investment in the electricity sector? Again, jointly organized with the UK Minister, Kwarteng. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. And Africa, being at the heart of the crisis, both economic crisis and the pandemic, and it is huge implications with the, again, a good friend, Minister Cissé from Senegal. We organized a very important meeting. So all of this brought us to today. Our first call, sustainable economic recovery, then making the analysis of the situation and providing an exit strategy in a sustainable way from this economic problem we are facing, and now preparing several ministerial meetings, we came to this summit. Now, why IEA organizes such a major summit? Because, very simple, because our world needs economic recovery and clean energy transitions at the same time. They are both very important, and our analysis show, our discussions with several ministers, governments show that to have a sustainable economic recovery, boosting our economic growth, and clean energy transitions can and must go hand in hand. It is the reason we organized this meeting, and I am so happy that the ministers around this virtual table, perhaps the largest energy and climate meeting of this year, makes about 80% of global energy use. 80%. You will see we have all the major players around this virtual table, but not only the ministers, we have the leaders of the energy industry covering the entire energy spectrum, and the top investors, representatives of the civil society, and many of them came together. This makes me very happy that we have such an overwhelming interest for this topic. What also makes me very happy is a very important issue. My invitation to those ministers made it clear. Dear Minister, we would like to discuss how we can boost the economic recovery and accelerate the clean energy transitions. Their acceptance to attend this meeting is a very good signal I am considering. So I wanted to thank once again to bring all the ministers, business leaders, bankers, investors, representatives of the civil society together, which we call bringing a grand coalition around the world. The only way we can address our challenges, we can reach our energy and climate goals, we believe. So we are very happy to have this meeting, and my expectation is from this meeting, we got the momentum, international momentum, to make real-world steps to accept the clean energy transitions while boosting the global economy. With this word, I would like to now start our discussion. And I can tell you that I will be asking some questions to our excellent ministers and speakers. But before that, we received a message from the United Nations Secretary General, Mr. Guterres, about our meeting. And I would like to start with that very message of United Nations Secretary General of Mr. Guterres. Afterwards, I will turn to Vice President Timmermans for his remarks. Now let's go for the video speech, the message of Secretary General Guterres, please.
Energy Agency for convening this summit. It is vital that we bring sharper focus on the need to transition away from fossil fuels and toward a clean energy future, a future that protects people and planet and promotes prosperity. Today, nations are taking far-reaching decisions as they channel trillions of dollars of taxpayers' money into recovery strategies in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. As we design and implement these recovery plans, we have a choice. We can go back to where we were, or we can invest in a better, more sustainable future. We can invest in fossil fuels, whose markets are volatile and whose emissions lead to little air pollution. Or we can invest in renewable energy, which is reliable, clean, and economically smart. I am encouraged that some COVID response and recovery plans put the transition from fossil fuels at their core. The European Union and the Republic of Korea have committed to green recovery plans. Nigeria has reformed its fossil fuel subsidy framework. Canada has placed climate disclosure conditions on its bailout support. And the growing number of coalitions of investors and real economy stakeholders are advocating for a recovery aligned with the goals of the Paris Agreement. But many have still not got the message. Some countries have used stimulus plans to prop up oil and gas companies that were already struggling financially. Others have chosen to jumpstart coal-fired power plants that don't make financial or environmental sense. New research on G20 recovery packages released this week shows that twice as much recovery money, taxpayers' money, has been spent on fossil fuels as clean energy. Today, I would like to urge all leaders to choose the clean energy route for three vital reasons: health, science, and economics. First, health. Worldwide, outdoor air pollution is causing close to 9 million early deaths every year and shortening human lifespan by an average of 3 years. This is a bigger toll on life expectancy than tobacco smoking. The second reason is science. All around the world, every month, there is new evidence of the increasing toll of climate disruption. We must limit temperature increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius to avert more and worse disasters. This means net zero emissions by 2050 and 45% cuts by 2030 from 2010 levels. And this is still achievable. My third rationale for the clean energy pathway is economics. Per kilowatt hour, solar energy is now cheaper than coal in most countries. If we had any doubt about the direction of the wind is blowing, the real economy is showing us. The business case for renewable energy is now better than coal in virtually every market. Fossil fuels are increasingly risky business with fewer takers. Commercial investment houses such as BlackRock or Crédit Agricole are asking companies to change their business models. Excellencies, the right decisions can put countries on a much safer and healthier footing. I've asked all countries to consider 6 climate-positive actions as they rescue, rebuild, and reset their economies. We need to make our societies more resilient. We need green jobs and sustainable growth. Bailout support to sectors such as industry, aviation, and shipping should be conditioned on alignment with the goals of the Paris Agreement. We need to stop wasting money on fossil fuel subsidies and place a price on carbon. We need to consider climate risk in our decision-making. Every financial decision must take account of environmental and social impacts. This is more important than ever in the coming months as companies, investors, and countries make big financial decisions about the future. We need investors to demand that companies reveal transition plans to reach net zero emissions. Overall, we need to work together. The seeds of change are there. Renewable energy is the only energy source expected to grow in 2020. Solar auctions have seen popularity amidst the height of the pandemic, and India serves as a good example. Renewables offer 3 times more jobs than the fossil fuel industry. Let us commit to no new coal today and end all external financing of coal in the developing world. Coal has no place in COVID-19 recovery plans. Nations must commit to net zero emissions by 2050 and submit more ambitious national climate plans before COP26 next year. Let us embrace the vast opportunity of a clean energy future. This is in everyone's interest. Thank you.
So many thanks to Mr. Secretary General. Mr. Secretary General mentioned the build back better. I would say definitely, but build back better together. It is important, the togetherness, and it is very good to see that there are so many ministers, decision makers around this table to all together having a better economy and a better energy system. Now, I understand that we have a small technical problem with the Vice President Timmermans. While he is trying to connect, I would like to turn to China. The Chinese minister is there. China is the largest energy consumer of the world, and the decision that will be made in China about energy will have implications for all of us. Mr. Minister, very nice to see you again, and looking forward to hear your views about the China's perspective. Thank you very much, sir. The floor is yours.
Executive Director Byron, ministers, distinguished guests, good evening. The first IEA Clean Energy Transition Summit takes place at a critical juncture when countries are jointly fighting COVID-19 and accelerating clean energy transition. It is crucial to global economic recovery, job creation, and a stable energy market. It exemplifies the excellent leadership of the IEA, especially Dr. Byron, in global energy governance. On behalf of the NEA of China, I would like to extend my warm congratulations on the convening of the summit. And I'd like to thank Dr. Byron for your tremendous support towards the development of the energy sector in China. Since the onset of COVID-19, the Chinese energy sector has been taking forceful measures to resume production, ensure stable supply of energy, and maintain a stable energy market. In Q2 this year, the energy consumption in China significantly rebounded, with a daily consumption of coal, electricity, oil, and gas on a par with last year. In June, daily electricity consumption in China was up about 7% year-on-year. Natural gas a bit higher than last year, and coal at roughly the same level, and oil products roughly 92% of the same period last year. With the great turbulence in the global markets, oil and gas imports in China grew somewhat compared with last year. From January to May, the crude oil and natural gas imports rose 5.2% and 1.9% year-on-year. And we expect a moderate growth throughout this year. So China has been taking actions to ensure a stable global energy market and world economic recovery. Clean energy transition post-COVID is a complicated and challenging undertaking. In spite of a myriad of challenges that we're faced with, we're sure that the pandemic will bring more attention to fighting climate change and optimizing the energy mix. China will stay committed to clean, low-carbon, safe, and efficient development of the energy sector. Since the beginning of this year, China has launched a set of policies to secure investment in the energy sector, continue to build energy infrastructure projects with priorities given to renewables, and move towards clean and low-carbon energy consumption. According to our calculations, an additional 85.1 gigawatts of wind and PV can be integrated into the grid in China this year. And by the end of the year, the accumulated installed capacity of renewables in China will reach 800 and 550 gigawatts. At the same time, the new energy vehicle charging parks and UHV and other infrastructure projects will be among the priority investment areas of new infrastructure development in China, receiving hundreds of billions of investment and in a strong push to the development of renewables. Developing energy, clean energy, and emerging from the pandemic are the common mission of the international community. We hope that we can expand cooperation in the following areas. First, strengthen clean energy policy communication and coordination and make joint efforts to create an open and transparent environment for the development of clean energy. Second, work closer in technological innovation, break geological barriers, and engage in joint research and demonstration projects, build multiple collaboration platforms, and explore new ways in energy innovation and system design. Third, step up communication and cooperation in the IEA and other international multilateral mechanisms. Together, let's safeguard a stable global energy market, ensure energy security, and reboot the world economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. As I said, the decisions that will be taken in China will be, of course, important for China, but given the size of the economy and being the largest energy consumer, it will affect all of us. Now, I have one question, Mr. Minister, if I may. We all know that the 5-year plans in China is critical for directing the Chinese economy, and you are in preparation of the next 5-year plan starting from 2021 in 6 months of time. What kind of clean energy technologies are you planning to include in the 5 years plan from China's perspective? A very short answer, if I may, Mr. Minister. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Director Barrow. Well, the 14th 5-year energy plan covers a time frame from 2021 to 2025, and this plan is very important to the mid to long-term development and quality development of the energy sector in China. So our judgment is that despite of the short-term headwinds brought by COVID-19 to the energy markets, but in the long run, we still think there's huge potential for the growth of energy demand. And China will stay committed to green and low carbon transition in the energy sector. So in our plan, we're going to focus on the building of an energy system that is clean, low carbon, safe, and efficient. With particular focus on energy security, we will step up reform and innovation, strengthen and expand cooperation, and push for clean energy transition and safe and sustainable development. We will give priorities to ecological, environmental protection, and green development, and push for non-fossil fuels to take up a bigger part of the newly added energy consumption. In particular, we're going to make great efforts to develop hydro, wind, PV, and build integrated renewable bases. We're also going to accelerate the development of biomass, geothermal, and promote clean and efficient development and utilization of fossil fuels. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. We are ready as IEA to support the Chinese efforts in terms of the clean energy transitions, energy efficiency improvements, as we are working together. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Now, staying in Asia, going to a country which has been many years a key driver of energy innovation, Japan. Mr. Minister, very nice to see you once again, and looking forward to hear your remarks, Mr. Minister. The floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone. As you have been introduced, I am Kajiyama Hiroshi, Minister of Economy, Trade and Industry of Japan. First of all, I thank Dr. Biro, Executive Director of IEA, very much for hosting the important meeting today. Having said that, allow me to make some comments on Japan's thoughts on the world's energy transition and decarbonization. Through the global spread of coronavirus, the world has come to recognize once again the importance of resilient and clean energy system. However, there is no single path to achieve that. As countries differ in their geographical characteristics and developmental stage, these need to be factored in to think about their own pathways for energy transition and act upon it. Japan is prone to natural disasters such as typhoon. Moreover, due to mountainous terrain, potential for renewable energy use is limited. However, despite these constraints, Japan is aiming to achieve economic self-reliance on renewable energy and make it into a baseload power. To that end, last month, Japan revised the relevant legislation, paving the way for combining various policies to establish a resilient transmission grid with a bigger renewable component in a cost-contained manner. Further, as regards coal-fired plant in Japan, to make more firm the phasing out of an inefficient coal power generation plant as prescribed in Strategic Energy Plan, I have given instruction to start examining the ways to introduce more effective new mechanism. Also, regarding the export overseas of coal-fired plant, a more stringent policy was set today, which was released to the public. And whose basic policy is to actively support the decarbonization of recipient countries, and for countries who cannot but to opt for coal-fired plant still, the assistance is limited only to the top-notch technology will be provided. We will continue to contribute to the effective reduction of CO2 emission. In addition to these immediate efforts, Japan believes that in order to achieve more effective decarbonization globally, including industry and transport areas, the combined use of various decarbonization technologies is important, such as hydrogen, key technology for clean energy transition, CCUS, carbon recycling, as well as many other innovative nuclear technology. On hydrogen, Japan took the lead in the world to put together a national hydrogen strategy in 2017. Australia, Netherlands, and Germany, and also EU came up with their own version of hydrogen strategy yesterday, and the drive toward worldwide hydrogen use has begun. Japan will also work toward a hydrogen society and intensify efforts accordingly. This fiscal year, total budget will be more than $700 million for it. However, these technologies are still costly, calling for further innovation to further drive down the cost so that it will be deployable. To that end, Japan, through the steady implementation of progressive environment innovation strategy formulated this January, our concrete pathway for cost reduction and subsequent take-up will be shared with the world, through which contributing to the decarbonization of the world. Although each country has its own domestic situation, but all countries have to work in unison when it comes to solving global issues such as climate change. Last year, as a G20 presidency country, Japan presented to the world the basic concept of virtuous cycle of environment and growth, and took up 3 areas of LNG, hydrogen, and carbon recycling, which are indispensable for advancing realistic and efficient energy transition, and hosted international conferences around these topics all at once. This year as well, in October, 3 conferences will be held virtually, where policymakers and the top-notch experts would gather together and hope to deepen discussion on emerging issues post-COVID and concrete actions going ahead. Lastly, IEA, even under challenging times like we are in now, has released thought-provoking reports one after another and has convened international conferences actively and has taken the lead in discussion over energy. I express once again deep respect to the leadership of Dr. Biro and hope very much the role of IEA as an information hub to handle all energy sources and technology. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kajiyama. Mr. Kajiyama, we are a bit running out of time, but I have a short question to you, if I may, about coal. Coal plays a big role in the Japanese electricity generation mix. And you made some announcements very recently, and I commend you on that, that you have decided to phase out inefficient coal power plants in Japan. In the real life, what does it mean? Do we expect a change, a major change in the Japanese power generation mix? What is next? Are you going to, are we going to see some challenges on the electricity security side? What do you expect the implications on the emission trends of Japan? I will be very happy to hear from you, and I am sure many ministers around this virtual table would benefit from your statement, Mr. Minister. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much. The new and effective mechanism will be considered, including new regulatory measures, mechanism to induce early withdrawal of inefficient coal-fired plant, such as a taxation system, and review of grid use rules to suppress inefficient thermal power and accelerate introduction of renewables. All these will be considered. As for the ratio for the renewable base loading, of course, it has a big potential, so that offshore wind around which that time a public-private consultative council will be launched this month. And this way of work will be accelerated. Japan is a resource-scarce country, no internet grid interconnection with other countries. So we really have to work on the diversification of energy and procurement sources is indispensable, diversify them, and also have a nuclear power with top priority on the safety and so forth. So we will work on all these fronts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister, and good luck with implementing this phase-out policy. Now, moving to another very important country in Asia, India. We all know that the India economy, before the coronavirus, when we look at the global economy, India was one of the shining spots of global economy. As the rest of the world, it was affected, of course, from the economic downturn. But the fundamentals are strong. Therefore, the decisions that will be taken in New Delhi will be very important for the Indian energy sector, Indian people, and also more and more for the entire world. I am very much looking forward to hear from Minister Singh his views about Indian plans, Indian perspective. Minister Singh, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Dr. Pratash Bro. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we are living through extraordinary times. I think mankind is facing one of the biggest challenges it has ever faced. Yet, we are looking ahead to recovery beyond this challenge. Although I do not see clearly as to when this challenge can be overcome, until unless a vaccine is successful and tested and made available. I think it will be futile to look back and think of what we could have done differently. But what this calamity has done, at least it has, I think most people would agree, is that it has again brought home to us that we are all living in one world and we sink or swim together. We are in the same boat, and that boat is this world. And it's in that perspective that we need to look at the challenge, the other challenge facing this world, and which is the environmental challenge. And that environmental challenge is also something which is going to affect the whole world. No country will be an island, and therefore we need to confront it together. And in that context, Dr. Birol, I need to congratulate you and the International Energy Agency for bringing this issue up of energy transitions while we undertake recovery. We in our country, our government has made it very clear that for us, the environmental challenge is of paramount importance. Our country had made a pledge on the sidelines of COP21 that by 2030, 40% of our energy capacity will come from fossil fuels, non-fossil fuels. And we are almost close to that. We are already at 38.5%. We are going about meeting this environmental challenge in two ways. One is energy transition and the other is energy efficiency. Now we have the highest rate of growth of renewable energy capacity in the world. Against, we had set a target of for ourselves of establishing 175,000 megawatts of renewable energy capacity by 2022. Now, if you take the capacity which has been installed and which is under installation, we are very close to that. We are already at 133,000 megawatts. The IEA's World Energy Investment Report 2019 has rated India as the fastest growing energy market in the world. We continued adding capacity despite COVID. We finalized bids of about 5,600 megawatts during the lockdown. And I'm happy to report that the last bid which we had, 5 companies out of the 9 who participated were from other countries, Spain, United States, France. Our energy market, renewable energy market, is going to grow faster yet. We have bids of about 27,000 megawatts which are out there and which are going to be finalized in the next month or so. We are also putting in place innovative bids. We had a bid for renewable energy with storage to address the requirements of peak time demand of about 1,200 megawatts. We had a bid of about 400 megawatts of renewable energy with storage for making electricity available, green energy available round the clock, 24/7. That was also successful. And we have decided that we'll keep on adding storage to all our future bids. I see the trajectory which we have put in place is that our total renewable energy capacity, which has been installed and which is under installation, is actually, including hydro, already near about 50% if you take the capacity under installation. And by 2030, it will be more than 60%. And all this capacity addition which we are doing and we will be doing, we'll keep on adding storage to it. That is a strategy because we feel that we need to adopt the strategy to bring the price of storage down. And once the price of storage comes down, then pure sheer economics itself will edge out, the fossil fuel forms of energy. And I would urge all the countries here present here today to also adopt a similar strategy. Together, we can bring the price of storage down. We are technology agnostic. We are not saying that we prefer, lithium ion or we prefer pumped hydro or whatever. Any form of storage or hydrogen, any form of storage, they're all welcome to compete. And India, of course, is a place where we are offering the biggest market. And as the IEA itself has observed, Bloomberg has also observed that we are the biggest market in renewables. So this market will continue to be the biggest market in renewables, and I invite all of you to come and participate, and also request all of you to keep on adding stories. Our Prime Minister and our government has laid down a two-pronged strategy for our economy. One is to electrify our economy. That means we want to switch over to electric mobility, insofar as mobility is concerned, to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels for mobility. Also cooking, our objective is to switch over entirely to electricity. So one objective is to electrify our economy. And the next objective is to green our electricity. So both are the twin strategies which we are following in the energy transition. There is another leg to our energy transition, and that is energy efficiency. Now, this is again something which we have placed a huge emphasis on. We have recently switched over about 11 million street lights to LED, resulting in savings of electrical energy of 7.46 billion units. Under our LED program, we have saved, we have reduced our CO2 emissions by 38.62 million tons of CO2, and the electricity savings was 47.10 billion units. We have a program for appliances, standards and labeling program, under which we have saved 55.7 billion units and reduced CO2 emissions of 45.68 million tons of CO2. In all, we have a program for industry, under which in the second cycle, we reduced our CO2 emissions by 61.9 million tons of CO2 and energy consumption of 13.69 million tons of oil equivalent. In all, in electricity savings, we have effected savings of 140.6 billion units. That is 11.33% of our total energy consumption. Thermal energy savings of 12 million tons of oil equivalent, and total energy savings of 23.72 million tons of oil equivalent, and reduction in CO2 emissions of 155.2 million tons of carbon dioxide. For us, environment, for our government, led by the Prime Minister Modi, environment is actually a matter of religion almost, and we'll achieve our goals. By 2030, you will see India having more than 60% of its capacity from renewables. Thank you, Dr. Birol, and congratulations again.
Thank you very much, Minister Singh. Great improvements in India. I mean, you mentioned the renewables and energy efficiency. Maybe it is not directly related to this meeting, but I wanted to also congratulate India for the historic achievement bringing electricity to all of its citizens. So it is a very important achievement as well. So congratulations for that as well, Mr. Minister. Now, I would like to move to Latin America now. We are very fortunate to have Brazil. Mr. Minister is with us so early in the morning. Very good morning to you, Mr. Minister. I thank you very much for getting up so early and to join to your colleagues in Asia who are almost ready to go to bed. Very nice to hear from you, Mr. Minister, your perspective, Brazil's perspective, the largest country in Latin America, and of course, the decisions, the directions you take is very important for your country, but also for the world. Thank you very much once again, Mr. Minister. The floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Dr. Fatih Birol. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone from Brazil. Brazil took the necessary measures to guarantee that emergency financial and economic relief were available to prevent an even deeper crisis. Besides the support for low-income consumers up to 220 kilowatt-hour, a loan to distributors in the amount of up to $5 billion was released. Our 10-year and our 30-year energy plan are being adapted to the pandemic effects and will be made public by the end of this month of July. We made plans to modernize transmission assets, which should attract significant investments in the coming years. We designed new legal frameworks and market rules for the power sector modernization and the new gas markets, with the excellent cooperation of IEA under the Clean Energy Transitions Program. A business model is being finished to be presented to potential partners for new nuclear units planned for the coming years. Looking ahead, Brazil, as the chair of the Biofuture Platform and the IEA as its facilitator, can play an important role helping countries to address the short-term impact of the pandemic on bioenergy and seize the opportunity to rebuild better, reducing emissions through smart policy and market mechanisms. International cooperation is pivotal to recovery. We need to keep this ongoing dialogue. In particular, Brazil wants to develop partnerships in the low-carbon hydrogen sector. We recognize that IEA leads the global call for sustainable recovery, offering concrete solutions to boost economy, create jobs, and put emissions in structural decline. This event is proof of IEA's growing global convening power. Finally, we praise the important role of IEA leading global energy transitions with an all fields, all technologies approach. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Now, first of all, for your kind words and also for giving this information about Brazil and your approach. For the ministers, some of you may not know, IEA has a very special project, Clean Energy Transitions Project, that we are working with emerging giant countries to help them to share best practices in terms of the renewable energy, energy efficiency, carbon capture and storage, and other different technologies to accelerate the clean energy transitions, and Brazil, India, China examples to those. And I wanted to also highlight one issue, Brazil and biofuels. Colleagues who are, I know there are many ministers here who read a lot energy and non-energy things. In the history, energy history, it is a very important example how policy does matter, government policies in terms of bioenergy and what Brazil has achieved through bioenergy programs since decades. And we are very honored to work with the Brazilian government on the bioenergy futures platform and many other governments in Asia, Latin America, and elsewhere. So thank you very much, Mr. Minister, for your leadership in Latin America, but also globally. Now, may I go from Brazil to Europe, to Vienna, to Austria, a wonderful city that I had the privilege to live 13 years. Madam Minister, Minister Gewessler, we are very much looking forward to hear your view on the new Austrian governments, because you have a new government, and I have congratulated you before, but once again, congratulations for your very important job here. Madam Minister, with the new government policy in terms of clean energy transitions, where do you stand and how do you see it also in European and global terms, Madam Minister?
So first of all, dear Dr. Birol, dear Excellencies, dear ladies and gentlemen, let me say it's a great pleasure to be able to discuss with you today our path to a sustainable energy system and a sustainable economy in the light of the COVID-19 recovery efforts. Because I'm convinced the current crisis, or we all feel it, that the current crisis confronts us with enormous challenges. But on the other hand, now this specific point in time is also a unique opportunity to rebuild our economies in a more sustainable way. And in this regard, let me congratulate you, Dr. Birol, on behalf of all the colleagues at the IEA, that on the outstanding work that you have done and you're still doing to ensure a sustainable recovery from the crisis. And I read your report with a lot of interest, and I think it's impressive, contains a lot of data and policy recommendations. And allow me to comment on 3 points. The one is I would like to specifically support the focus on investing not only in electricity grids, but also in renewable transport, and in particular high-speed rail. We all know mobility, key concern in our CO2 balance sheet. I would also like to support the recommendation to reform inefficient fossil fuel subsidies, maybe taking advantage of this currently low oil and gas prices, so maybe also using this moment in time. But also let me raise one concern from an Austrian perspective, that the recommendation regarding a nuclear renaissance, be it through small nuclear reactors, small modular nuclear reactors, or the extending of lifetime, is something which raises strong concerns for us, strong sustainability and safety concerns, saying that not only as a minister, but also as a long-standing environmental and climate activist. But for Austria to build the bridge, it's a fundamental importance that the clean energy transition is one of the main pillars for securing our competitiveness in the future, and to ensure credible climate action, and that we need to use this moment in time to focus our recovery efforts on increased investments in green and sustainable energy sources, in energy efficiency, and in new, safe and sustainable technologies, be it at the Austrian level, be it at the European level, be it at the global level. And I will not give you an overall view of Austrian energy policy now. We're due to the short amount of time, but you know that we have very ambitious goals. Being climate neutral in 2040 is a big task. So of course we must use any opportunity we have to set the course towards this goal. So we do that. Let me focus on the economic recovery plan that we were currently devising. In this economic recovery plan, there's €2 billion additional investments in the next 2 years in green recovery and in the green transition. That's almost €300 million in renewables deployment for additional investments to reach our goal of 100% renewable electricity by 2030. We will also intensify our investments in energy innovation and future technology, which will play a crucial role in our path to climate neutrality. For example, and I've heard many of you focus on it also, renewable hydrogen, battery technology, so focus on research and development. And in addition, and that's the topic we discussed last, Dr. Birol, energy efficiency, key concern. So we will increase also the funding and the investment in retrofitting houses and in the replacement of fossil fuel heating systems, so oil and gas heating systems, because this kind of the Austrian renovation wave, being a support for the EU renovation wave, will be a key also support for reaching our energy efficiency goals. In addition, of course, we will need to increase the production of renewable gases to have this system-wide approach. But let me conclude by saying I'm really deeply convinced that in investing in decarbonization, in the energy transition, right in this point of time, it will produce a double dividend. It will benefit our economies by making it future-proof. It will get people back to work, something that's of paramount importance for all of us, and it will help us reach our climate objectives. And that's the big crisis, the climate crisis. This hasn't been on pause during the COVID crisis. So let's use this moment in time.
Thank you very much, Madam Minister. If I may, just one quick follow-up question. Again, your new government's ambitions 2040 is a very strong one, very ambitious, and lots of courage, I am sure, and work it required. Now, and I know that you have a very strong support from your citizens. But in terms of implementation, Madam Minister, if you have to pick up two big challenges to reach this target, what would you pick up? Two main challenges to implement and to reach that very ambitious and, of course, a legitimate goal. Thank you very much.
It's an easy and difficult question at the same time. I think there are so many challenges in so many sectors that many of us face in our daily work. Usually, I would say mobility is a key question, but if we look at the size and the challenge that some of the industry sectors face in terms of transitioning, it's huge. We see it in the automotive sector, we see it in the airline sector, sectors that have been hit now very hard. So I wouldn't want to pick a sector or a specific task, but I think what's key for all of us is to navigate and to steer and to encourage people for change. And
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. And the mobility is a major problem in many countries, and of course we all see a big increase of renewables, but they are mainly in the electricity generation. And what is important is the clean energy transitions, not only clean electricity transitions. We have to look at what's happening in the mobility, industry, home heating, and others. Thank you very much, Madam Minister. And I hope you didn't forget that you and your colleagues promised me a melange, the cafe, when I come over to Vienna next time. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Minister. So may I turn to another very important country in Asia, Indonesia. We all know that the Indonesian economy, Indonesian energy sector is critical not only for Indonesia, but also ASEAN region and for the rest of the world. And with the 300 million people population, almost 300 people population, decisions that will be taken in Jakarta will be very important for all of us. So may I turn to now Indonesian Minister Arifin Tasrif. Thank you very much for attending our meeting, Mr. Minister. Looking forward to hear your views.
Thank you, Dr. Biro. Honorable Ministers, distinguished guests, good afternoon from Jakarta, Indonesia. It is 6 o'clock afternoon. This summit, IEA summit, indeed is timely as the world economy is now facing challenging time with the COVID-19 outbreak, which is undoubtedly affected every corner of the globe and hinder sustainable development and clean energy transition. One of the many impacts of the outbreak in the energy sector reflected in the significant decrease on the global energy consumption due to the implementation of lockdown and isolation policy. In Indonesia, the energy demand for business and industry still struggling to reach its normal condition. Our oil fuel consumption dropped to 17.6% compared to the same period last year. However, on the bright side, the lockdown policy has also brought a positive impact to the significant reduction of the CO2 emission in Indonesia. For once, people in the city like Jakarta can finally enjoy the clean air and clear blue sky. Therefore, during this challenging time, energy production should be adjusted accordingly to create a new balance and to enhance the clean energy transitions process. Fulfilling the demand of energy, Indonesia has set a target of 23% renewable energy in the energy mix in 2025. This policy, with Indonesia's commitment to reduce emission up to 29% in 2030, is a clear path to a cleaner energy system. To achieve the target and encourage renewable energy investment, the government of Indonesia is currently preparing presidential regulation regarding the feed-in tariff. We are also prioritizing to use potential renewable energy to provide energy supply to our people in the remote area and outer area, which is also targeting to replace all diesel power plants within the next 3 years. We are seeking a breakthrough in reducing emissions from our coal power plants. We promote the use of biomass co-firing with coal to reduce emissions and increase the role of renewable energy. We also have a plan to terminate our aged coal-fired power plant and implementing clean coal technology. Bioenergy is highly crucial in Indonesia's clean energy transition process. Recently, we are preparing such a project like waste to energy, where we will develop in 14 cities, integrating waste management and electricity generation. Also, we promote biomass as an alternative to fossil fuels for power plants and industries. In transportation, we are currently developing biofuel to gradually reduce our fossil fuel consumption by introducing biodiesel and establishing green refineries to maximize our palm oil potentials. Indonesia has the world's third largest expanse of tropical forests, and we have set a bold target to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, mainly from the forest and land use sectors. We are working hand in hand with our partners in the REDD+ program to reach these targets, one of which is through partnership with the Kingdom of Norway in verified performance model of carbon pricing, which has been proven to reduce equivalent to 11.2 million tons of CO2. To expedite the transition, Indonesia has been implementing also digitalization in the energy system, which is potentially improve energy efficiency in all aspects, starting from the generation to energy utilization. In the demand side, our program of energy efficiency focusing on the implementation of energy management standards and levels for equipment and behavioral changes through awareness raising. Investment in equipment and systems will be needed in order to achieve better energy efficiency. Therefore, affordable financing to support this paradigm shift is then required. Indonesia highly appreciates the long-standing cooperation with the IEA in supporting our energy transition, especially in the current challenging situation. Moving forward, it is increasingly important to join forces and strengthen partnerships among countries and international organizations together in overcoming the impact of COVID-19, recovering the global economy, and subsequently speeding up the clean energy transition. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Once again, a country like Indonesia with almost 300 million people and very strong economic fundamentals, the decisions, policy decisions, investment decisions are extremely critical. And we are very happy, as you mentioned, Mr. Minister, working together in the context of our clean energy transitions program on renewable energy. And one question to you, Mr. Minister, how do you see the renewable energy investment perspectives in Indonesia? Because we know that you have huge potential on almost all renewable resources, and there is a lot of interest there for both domestic and international companies. But from your perspective, Mr. Minister, how do you see the renewable energy investment perspective in Indonesia briefly, especially the way that you and the IEA are working together, trying to make it even more attractive for the investors? But I would like to hear your views, Mr. Minister.
Thank you, Dr. Biro. Indonesia, as you recognize, we have quite huge resources of the renewables. We have geothermal here. We have also solar energy source. We have a bio energy resources, where we can produce biomass, biofuels. And then recently, as to achieve our target in 2025, that we are preparing right now the presidential regulation, which will be issued within the next couple months, which will issue the new tariff, which we believe it will attract investment to come to Indonesia, because in order to change from the fossil energy to renewables, it needs a lot of capitals. So that's why we hope that this new tariff will attract investors to come. And also we are going to simplify the administration process here.
Thank you
This
very
new
much.
regulation, yeah, we will introduce new tariff for renewable energy.
Yes.
So we hope we can create better business and then more partnership with foreign investors in Indonesia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister, and we are very keen to make it even more attractive for the investors, but most importantly, for the Indonesian people to breathe better air, better quality air, and boosting the growth. And we are very happy to work with the Indonesian government under the umbrella of the presidential decree in terms of the renewable energy investment framework. Now, I would like to go to, I would say, Davos. I know that Mr. President Brande is not in Davos, but he will talk us about the World Economic Forum, and then go to South Africa. The Minister Mantashe is there. But before going there, I wanted to share with you a personal note. I was very impressed that more than 40 ministers, business leaders, overwhelming response to our invitation to come to this meeting. And we decided to make it a global live stream. And my colleagues tell me that as of now, hundreds of thousands of people are watching this, highlighting the importance of the energy and climate transitions. My colleagues are preparing the exact number, and I will be sharing with you in about half an hour. So thank you very much for your presence once again to all the ministers. Now, we all know that the policies matter, but Davos does matter as well. And we were very fortunate that the World Economic Forum and the IEA organized several meetings, bringing the ministers and the CEOs together in the last few months. And I am very thankful to President Brande for taking time from his busy agenda and sharing with us his thoughts from a business perspective, from a World Economic Forum perspective. What are the priorities in terms of clean energy transitions? President Brande, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you so much, Dr. Birol, and congratulations on your success on reaching out to hundreds of thousands of people. And distinguished ministers, excellencies, thank you for this opportunity to speak at this very timely and I think crucial summit. The Sustainable Recovery Plan shows we can accelerate recovery through energy transition. I think that's the whole point. Creating 9 million new jobs and also making sure that we have a more resilient energy system. This win-wins will not happen on their own. They will require smart stimulus, policies, and the public and private sectors working together. That's what it's all about. Decisions we all take in coming months will be crucial. This is also why the World Economic Forum has been mobilizing our oil and gas and electricity industry communities and others, not just to respond to the crisis, but to take action for rebuilding stronger. Together with the IEA, we have also engaged CEOs from different energy sectors and spectrums and ministers in sustained dialogue, as also alluded to by Dr. Birol. I have been impressed by how committed these stakeholders are in working together to speed economic recovery and transition to a more sustainable and resilient energy future. Let me share 3 points from this for the discussions today. First, scaling available clean energy solutions like solar, wind, and energy efficiency is key. When deciding on policies and investments in these and other areas, we should take into account the full system value. Beyond costs, it means dimensions like impact on emissions and air quality, job creation, energy security and resilience, water footprint, and energy access. Second, now is the real time to double down on actions to enable emerging technologies and new areas to scale and become job creators and boosters of transition, including clean hydrogen and sustainable fuels, clean industrial clusters, clean and efficient cities, circular carbon economy. Accelerating these areas will require alliances and smart government support. Thankfully, we are seeing this already starting to happen. Third, we must unlock more finance for energy transition in emerging countries. The COVID reset opens their opportunities to advance cleaner and cheaper sources of energy and avoid more polluting pathways. To conclude, energy transition is a prerequisite for the recovery, leading to a more resilient, cleaner, and affordable energy future. The current crisis is both a call to arms and opportunity of a lifetime to build forward better. Let us capitalize on this golden opportunity together, public sector and private sector, in a unique cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President Brenda, and I very much hope that the World Economic Forum next January, first of all, can take place in person. This is as somebody who last 13 years each year enjoyed the discussion in Davos as the chair of the Energy Advisory Board of World Economic Forum. I really hope that not only in person, and we discuss this issue as well, how we can accelerate the clean energy transitions and at the same time boost the economic growth. And thank you very much to you and your leadership, Mr. President.
Thank you so much.
May I move to South Africa? I am very happy that Minister Mantashe is with us. As we all know, South Africa is the top economy in the entire Africa, and this year South Africa is the president of the African Union. Mr. Minister Mantashe, thank you very much for joining to us, and we would like to hear your views from the South African perspective, sir. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Birol, Mr. Guterres, the Secretary General of the UN, Your Excellencies, ministers and leaders of delegations. I'm speaking from South Africa, which is an economy in a continent that contributes between 2 and 3% of global carbon emissions. I'm speaking from a country, South Africa, which is running a fleet of 16 coal power generated power stations now, and we're under pressure to actually eliminate those 16 power stations. The sooner the better. In response to that, we are a signatory to the Paris Agreement, and our commitments there stand, and they remain central in our planning. In 2020, coal is providing 75% of energy in South Africa. Renewables provide 7%. In terms of our integrated resource plan, by 2030, which is 10 years from now, coal will be reduced to 59%, and renewables will be grown to 24%. Now, in the plan, we have allocated various technologies because we think that it's not only coal versus renewables. We believe that it is about security of energy supply. We are a country in Africa where 87% of the population have access to electricity. We are having 13% that we want to make up so that we can have universal access to electricity. In our plan, we have allocated emergency power to generate 2,000 megawatts. Coal is only given 1,500 megawatts to 2030. And in that 1,500, we will be looking in all technologies if we can still have use of coal cleaner, because of huge deposits of coal. So cleaner coal technologies to us are not yet a no-go area. We are experimenting with them. We have 2,500 megawatts, which we must get either from hydrogen, which is scarce. We can only get it if the Inga project become a reality and get energy from there. Alternatively, we'll have to develop nuclear capacity in addition to what we have. And that nuclear capacity, we have taken a decision that, listen, we're not going to go full scale. We're going to go modular at a scale, pace, and price that our economy can afford. Photovoltaic have been given 6,000 megawatts to generate to add. These are additional. And wind is given 14,400 megawatts to add. Storage 2,088, and gas 3,000 megawatts. You can see that we're looking at a range of technologies. We took that option because we don't have the comfort of saying we can move from coal to renewables overnight. And therefore, we must sustain accessibility, we must sustain the ability to keep our economy going, and you see energy as a flywheel for the economic renewal post-COVID, if there will be a post-COVID soon. And therefore, I'm sure that picture gives you the picture of what we're doing, but that integrated resource plan for us guides us on electricity generation up to 2030. We'll revisit it in 2030 and adjust it to the conditions that we're facing at that point in time. I would say many things, but in the interest of time, I think this picture that I'm painting will actually give you a picture of where we're going. Emphasis, we're looking into energy mix rather than one technology option. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Montashe. Now, I have one question to you on that, but before that, I see the Mexican Secretary, Minister Nale is there. I just want to thank you, Madam Secretary, so early, I know Mexico City, to wake up, and on behalf of the IEA, thank you very much for joining this event. But going back to Minister Montashe, Minister, first of all, I agree with you completely. The Mexicans, the Africans, whoever they are, people's most important thing is to have access to energy. And of course, we have to reduce the emissions, but I can understand that the priorities in sub-Saharan Africa compared to another country are not exactly the same. And it is very normal that you look at the entire power generation mix, energy mix, make the most of all the available sources in the most sustainable way. Now here I have one question to you, Minister Montashe, because I know that one of your passions, your preoccupation is bringing access to energy to everybody in your country, but outside of your country. What is the one single most important challenge to have access to energy in Africa in general, I should say, or in South Africa? But if you have to pick up one most important challenge you see in having a universal access to electricity, please?
It is the ability to develop capacity, connected capacity, that can be used to give access to everybody. And that is the biggest preoccupation. But we have not removed our eyes from the ball in terms of reducing carbon emissions. That's why we subscribe heavily to the concept of just transition. And just transition cannot mean jumping like a pendulum from one end to the other. It will mean systematic transitioning from one era to the next. And that is what we're contributing, we're subscribing to. And we think we are positioning ourselves to manage that carefully, despite the pressures. Because sometimes when you are a weaker economy, you get pushed to do things that can actually almost like self-destruction. We are resisting that. We will do what we can do so that we give electricity to our people at an affordable price and transition from high emissions and to low emissions over a period.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. And I am very much looking forward to our joint African Union IEA meeting this year in South Africa. Hopefully we will have it in person and having many African ministers joining you and myself for that very meeting. And all the best to you, Mr. Minister. Now, thank you very much. And we talk about the development, when we talk about the development in Africa, but also in other parts of the world, and Asia is very important here. I would like to turn to President of Asian Development Bank, President Asakawa. But before that, my colleagues just gave me an information that really surprises me in a positive way. As we speak now, number of viewers following this debate around the world through our digital platforms reach 400,000 people. 400,000 people are following this debate. So this is a big surprise, at least for me, a good surprise. Of course, in addition to the having some 40 ministers around the world from 5 continents coming together is also another great pleasure for us. Now, having said that, Asian Development Bank plays a very important role in a continent which has been decades and decades the engine of the global economic growth, and the what ADB decides in terms of loans, in terms of which technologies does matter as well. So, President Asakawa, thank you very much for joining us. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bio. And also congratulations on your, getting 400,000 viewers for this. That's really great. And it is very honor to speak to you today at this very important and attractive summit meeting on the clean energy transition towards sustainable recovery. First, let me thank Dr. Bio for his contribution to ADB's Asian Clean Energy Forum several weeks ago. It was the 15th anniversary of our premier regional event promoting the clean energy transition. And ADB has valued IEA's strong support and partnership on this agenda over the years. Like other parts of the world, the impact of COVID-19 on Asia and the Pacific is very serious. ADB's Asian Development Outlook, ADO supplement, published in June, project that 33 out of 45 of ADB's developing member countries will contract this year. Overall, developing Asia expects to grow marginally by 0.1% in 2020, at the slowest growth for the region since 1961. The energy sector is playing a vital role during the COVID-19 crisis, providing an uninterrupted power supply to hospitals and enabling millions of people to work or study from home. Recovery from the pandemic is also providing opportunities for countries to chart a path that aligns even more strongly with the goals of sustainable development and addresses climate change. Increased investment in renewable energy, energy efficiency, and smart grids now can create more and long-term jobs, reduce air pollution, and greenhouse gas emissions. The economic systems will become more resilient to future shocks because renewable energy with energy storage do not depend on fuel supplies, and smart grid systems can be brought back online rapidly after an event. Renewable energy can also help strengthen the health facilities, particularly in rural areas, for example, solar-based cold chain will be essential to make vaccines available to people. In 2019, our climate financing reached a record high of $6.56 billion, meeting our target of doubling ADB's annual climate investments from 2014, a year ahead of schedule. We have set an even higher climate target for the next 10 years under our strategy 2030. We aim by 2030 to provide $80 billion in cumulative climate financing and to focus on climate adaptation and mitigation efforts in at least 75% of our operations. Building economic recovery and achieving sustainable energy goals, both globally and in Asia and Pacific, require closer cooperation among all stakeholders. And of course, this effort includes our renewed relationship with the IEA, where there is a great synergy between IEA's analytical capabilities and ADB's on-the-ground operations in Asia and the Pacific. ADB and the IEA have just signed a new MOU to continue our cooperation with focus on new energy technologies and energy sector resilience. Let me conclude by saying that at this important juncture of history, we can address the huge challenges in front of us if we partner together to support a low-carbon transition for sustainable recovery. ADB is committed, strongly committed, to this very important work, and we look forward to working with all those joining us today at this summit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We know very well, Mr. President, how important your decisions in terms of allocation of finance by ADB. It is the reason after we signed this milestone agreement between ADB and the IEA, I sent an email to my staff, or many of them, saying that we have even much more responsibility on our shoulders now, because the analytical advice we give the ADB, which technologies and where will have a strong impact on the real life and real emissions. It is a real world impact. So thank you very much for signing this strategic agreement between the ADB and IEA very recently, Mr. President. Now, dear colleagues, I mentioned that we had, before this summit, 3 ministerial meetings. And these ministerial meetings, one with co-chaired with Danish minister and myself, the other one with the Senegalese minister Cisse on Africa, and the other one is the Mr. Kwarteng of UK, and he is here today on electricity security. Minister Kwarteng, if I can start with you, from the discussion we had with you and other ministers on electricity security, what are the few lessons you may want to highlight? But before going that, I think a bit more important issue, I shouldn't forget, congratulations for Liverpool's championship this year and the premiership. Congratulations for that, Mr. Minister. Big success.
Very
The floor
much.
is yours.
Thank you so much, sir, Dr. Birol. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to report back on the very stimulating discussion we had at the Power Sector Roundtable held on the 29th of May this year. We heard about the successful efforts undertaken in response to the COVID-19 emergency to ensure uninterrupted supply to consumers, businesses, and critical services. A credit to all those working in the industry. This included coping with record falls in electricity demand. Grid operators, including in the UK, also successfully managed record high levels of renewable energy generation on the system. We noted with concern the latest findings from the IEA that capital spending in the power sector is set to drop in 2020. Investments in low carbon generation, grids, flexibility and storage now need to accelerate in order to develop sustainable and resilient power systems. There was a strong desire, Dr. Birol, not to return to business as usual, but to build back better after the COVID emergency. We agreed on the need to push for a green and resilient recovery to drive the clean energy transition towards net zero. As you yourself said, Fatih, this morning, the goals of economic recovery and energy transition are strongly aligned. As ministers, we also acknowledge the crucial role that governments play in setting the market rules and policies needed to mobilize and incentivize private sector investment. We also need to boost innovation, and an ambitious second phase of mission innovation will help accelerate innovation in key areas such as flexible grids. Despite these challenges, I was heartened by the sense of common purpose at the round table and the desire to strengthen and maintain international cooperation. Just as Minister Zhang said this morning, by working together, we can accelerate innovation and the growth of markets for clean technologies. The ongoing insight and leadership provided by the IEA will be crucial, including the continued rollout of the highly successful Clean Energy Transitions Program. As incoming COP President, the UK invites you to join us in identifying the best ways that we can work together to speed up the global transition to cheaper and cleaner energy. I look forward to hearing all views canvassed during today's meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Kwarteng, and many thanks for the UK's great support for our Clean Energy Transitions program, which helps us to work with many countries around the world. We talk about Indonesia, India, China, Africa, and so on. Like other countries, I very much thank you, Minister Kwarteng, for your great support and global view on that. And thank you very much also for chairing our electricity ministerial meeting a few months ago. Now, Africa. When we look at the numbers, ladies and gentlemen, between now and 2040, in the next 20 years, every second person born will be African, the other one rest of the world. And we all know that the coronavirus had a major impact on the economy, and Africa is, since several decades, for the first time, seeing a recession. And it is the reason why Senegalese Minister Cissé and myself decided only a month ago, bringing some 14 key African ministers together to discuss how we push back the COVID challenge, but at the same time, make sure the investments in the energy in Africa continues. And I am thankful to Minister Cissé joining us today as he co-chair with me the other meeting. Monsieur le Ministre, merci beaucoup, Monsieur. Les paroles c'est avec vous, Monsieur.
Thank you, Dr. Birol. In this period of pandemics, it is more than ever necessary not only to assess both globally and regionally the impact of COVID-19 on the energy sector, but also to propose concrete economic recovery solutions based on both courageous and committed economic policies to meet pre-COVID objectives. Thus, I personally had the pleasure on behalf of Senegal of co-chairing with Dr. Birol a roundtable held on last 30th June, bringing together several ministers of African continent. I would therefore like, through my speech today, to share with you the conclusions of the roundtable. On that, I would like to thank my African colleagues. Beforehand, allow me to relay the strong commitment made by Senegal under the impulse of His Excellency Macky Sall, President of the Republic, to incorporate as much as possible clean energy sources in the national energy mix. Thus, we are currently at almost 23 of clean energy consumption in Senegal. Distinguished participants, at the end of the African Roundtable, the participants agreed that it is more than important that necessary policies be implemented at the continental level in order to ensure sufficient, reliable, and affordable energy for all citizens. Finally, the need for an inclusive, fair, and sustainable energy transition was widely stressed. Regarding the energy sector, participants welcomed the progress made by many African countries in recent years, but in the face of the pandemic, so the problem of real resilience of energy sector across Africa is at stake. The COVID-19 crisis severely slows progress in energy access, and containment measures threaten off-grid development projects. It is urgent to strengthen, therefore, and speed up regional and sub-regional projects. With regards to oil and gas, the crisis has disrupted the world market and led to a sudden and sharp decline in export revenues. The persistence of uncertainties creates new risks and gives rise to difficulties in terms of long-term security and sustainability. Thus, as a result of the taken containment measures, particularly in many countries where production equipment is manufactured, delays sometimes exist that pose problems to the schedules of several oil and gas projects. Ladies and gentlemen, this roundtable also allows us to highlight the importance of strengthening strategies on local content and local capacity development, technology transfer, capacity building, particularly through training and sharing of resources. Ultimately, Africa needs to have an integrated, efficient energy power sector in order to achieve economic recovery and transformation. In this way, it will become more resilient. This is the summary of the results of the roundtable held on the 30th of June. Dr. Biro and I sincerely thank again all ministers and participants for their great contribution to the work done. The challenge is at a global level. It requires a strong cooperation between all parties. Africa has an essential role to play with all its assets, youth, economic dynamism, natural resources, innovation. This is how we will succeed in the energy transition to which the world is being forced, and this cannot be achieved without Africa. Thank you, Mr. Biro.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister, for your leadership. And I think, both understood that how important the Africa is for the world, but also for its economy, the energy and African economy. I remember that one data we discussed, Africa gets about 40% of the solar radiation of the world, 40%, but uses only 1% of the solar PV. And 40% of the solar you get, but 1% is used. There is a big decalage, if I may say so, between those two numbers. And with the declining cost of solar energy, I am sure, together with other energy sources, they will help the African energy to develop, and as such, pushes the African economic growth. Thank you very much for your leadership. IEA is, Mr. Minister, as I told Minister Montashe, dedicated, determined to work with you more and more on renewables and other energy sources to realize the economic development of Africa. Now, from here, I would like to turn to our third and the last chair of our ministerial meeting, the Denmark Minister Dan Jorgensen. Mr. Minister, it was you who came up with this idea at the beginning of the period of the pandemic session to organize a joint meeting. I thank you very much for your inspiration, for your idea, and for chairing the first meeting together with me, with all the ministers on the clean energy and economic recovery. The floor is yours, Mr. Minister.
Thank you so much, Fatih, and thank you again for your leadership in this very difficult time. Now, I was inspired by two statements made by previous speakers. One is yourself, Dr. Birol, and one is His Excellency Minister Singh from India. Minister Singh said that if nothing else, this pandemic and crisis has shown us that really we live in a globalized world. We are all in the same boat. I think that is an extremely important point, especially since we are now looking into months and years where different countries and groups of countries will put into place economic recovery policies that are extremely important and that can be a help in the green transformation, but that can also, if they're not put in place in the right way, have the opposite effects. If we look at what happened after the financial crisis in 2008, unfortunately, investments there were put into fossil energy instead of green energy transformation. So we shouldn't repeat those mistakes. Now, the second point that I want to reflect upon is your own, Dr. Birol. You said that policies matter. It matters what politicians do. I think that is extremely important to remember in these times. Let me give you a few examples from my own country. In 1991, we established the first offshore wind farm anywhere in the world. Now, at that time, a lot of economists were shaking their heads and said, that's not a very good or cheap way to produce energy. Fortunately, the policymakers at that time didn't listen. They said, well, we need development. We need to have countries that are front runners that will actually make sure that this technology will develop so that we in the future can exploit all of the resources we have with regards to wind and other renewables. Now, today, as all of you know, offshore wind competes with coal in many places on the planet. We build offshore wind farms without public subsidies. This is a result of political decisions. Where do we go from here? Well, we have some problems with renewables. One is, how do we store the energy? When the wind blows, we have a lot of renewable energy from offshore wind. What when it doesn't blow? Second problem, how do we get the renewables into, for instance, the transport sector? And we're looking at different possibilities of how to solve both problems. As a part of a decision made by the Danish government and broad majority of parties in our parliament just 2 weeks ago, we've decided to allocate funding and make legislation to support 2 energy islands. We hope that this will be a new era in how we look at offshore wind. So we will connect offshore wind farms to either an artificial island in the North Sea, which is one of the projects, or the island of Bornholm in the Baltic, which is the second project. This has huge potential. First of all, because they can serve as a hub for the electricity, but also because this makes it more feasible to connect to power-to-X technologies. Now, if we do that, we can transform the power from the wind into gas, hydrogen, and then into liquid fuels that can then be used on planes or maritime transport. So imagine that. It's not really science fiction, it's just science. Now we need to upscale it so that in a not too distant future, we'll be able to fly planes made on fuels coming from wind. So the technology is there, the political will, I hope, is also there. Definitely my own country aim to show the way in some aspects. Obviously, we are extremely pleased also that the European Union, the European Commission, hopefully will get Executive Vice President Timmermans also to give an intervention later, that they are taking the lead in these important months. Also, of course, the IEA, Dr. Birol, I've said it before, but you really are showing extraordinary leadership in these months. Can I also just say, like other colleagues have, that the Clean Energy Transition Program is an outstanding program, and Denmark has been providing funding for this since 2014, and we are proud to say that we will expand the support with a new 4-year commitment next year. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. This is a great news for me and for our agency, and I guess for all the emerging countries that for our clean energy transition program, which are designed to help the emerging countries to accelerate the clean energy transitions, will benefit an additional and large support from your country. Thank you very much for your leadership, Mr. Minister. Very much appreciated. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the COP meeting was supposed to take place in this year in November, but due to the COVID, it has been postponed. But we are very fortunate that the COP president, the UK Minister, the Secretary of State, Sharma, is with us. But before going to him, the co-chair of COP, the Italian Minister Costa, has a message. But even before him, I just saw Ireland, Mr. Ryan, the minister. Congratulations, he just started yesterday as a minister, and today joining the IEA meeting, IEA summit. Congratulations, Iman, and all the best, and looking forward to see you sometime very soon. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So now, first to Italy, we are having a very brief message from the Italian Minister Costa about the COP meeting, about clean energy transitions. Then I will move to the Sharma, the COP26 president. Let's listen first of all, the Minister Costa from Italy, Minister of Environment of Italy, please.
Grazie per questo invito.
Thank you for inviting me to this event, and I would also like to thank the agency for the endeavor for a global transition towards clean and sustainable energy. The devastating impact caused by COVID-19 has shown that a shift towards a new economic paradigm is paramount, one that ensures universal access to clean, sustainable and secure energy, and is in line with the Paris Agreement. Europe's commitment in this regard is strong, as demonstrated by the Green Deal and the planned EU climate law, which officially sets out to achieve climate neutrality by 2050, and also sets intermediate emission reduction goals, which we hope will be as ambitious as possible. Within this framework, Italy aims at a green restart, entailing a reorientation of investments, clean technologies, infrastructures and lifestyles for its citizens, as well as clear and stable regulatory frameworks for investors. Let me briefly go over 3 areas where we in Italy are taking action. First, the reduction of overall energy consumption by pushing strongly for the regeneration of buildings by extensive measures of energy efficiency and, thanks to substantial incentives, also the fostering of the use of low-impact public or shared transport, as well as the facilitation of bicycle and pedestrian mobility alongside smart working. Second, a substantial growth of renewables meant to replace fossil fuels, particularly in electricity generation. A significant share of electricity will then be allocated for hydrogen production, for the sake of technological and economic efficiency. And third, a substantial boost of the carbon absorption capacity of the forestry sector, thanks to a new national forestry plan. Italy is also very active internationally, particularly through cooperation projects. One that immediately comes to mind is the outstanding collaboration with the agency in this field, which has yielded a project for the digitization of infrastructures in developing countries to make them smarter and more efficient. A project based on a public and private partnership.
Delle infrastrutture nei paesi in via di sviluppo per renderle più intelligenti ed efficienti.
With this commitment, we want to show that an industrial country such as Italy, that is already at the forefront of energy efficiency and circular economy, can reconcile growth with the fight against climate change and environmental protection. This calling card, in the coming year, within the framework of our partnership with the UK for COP26, we will organize Pre-COP and Youth for Climate, an event for young people from all over the world that will have the opportunity to have a fruitful exchange with decision makers and negotiators.
Con decisori politici e negoziatori.
Okay, I would like to thank the Italian government once again for the great support we get in terms of the working on digitalization of the grids, electricity grids. We talk about the fuels a lot, but we forget sometimes how essential the grids are bringing electricity, different parts of the cities, countries, and we are thankful to Italian government for their support to IEA so that we can work better for the modernization, strengthening of the electricity grids around the world. Now, as the last speaker, we have the COP26 president. I saw him a second ago. Yes, Secretary of State, Mr. Sharma, thank you very much for joining us, sir. Before we hear the COP26 president, let me share with you one information I promised to give you. As of now, we speak, my colleagues tell me our global audience reached, this live stream reached 500,000 people. 500,000 people. This is definitely for COP26, I'm sure, Mr. President, but also the general interest in energy and climate change nowadays, which makes the life or responsibility of the policymakers, ministers, even, I would say, even more challenging. But looking forward to hear from you, Mr. Sharma, your views, COP26, what can we expect, sir?
Thank you so much, Fatih, for hosting this event and for all the work that you and the IEA do. Today, governments and businesses around the world are having to respond to that immediate and very acute challenge which is being posed by COVID-19. But we also know, and this is a fact we all acknowledge, is that the climate crisis hasn't taken any time off. And that's why we look forward to COP26 next November. And as we do that, we want to ramp up ambition to achieve a climate resilient, zero carbon economy. And as part of this, we want all countries to submit more ambitious NDCs, driving further cuts in carbon emission by 2030, and with all nations committing to reaching net zero emissions as soon as possible. Now, ahead of COP26, we've set out 5 areas that need particular attention. The first is energy, then transport, nature-based solutions, adaptation resilience, and tying it all together, finance. With the power sector now accounting for 1/4 of global emissions, the clean energy transition is central to tackling climate change. And to meet the goals of the Paris Agreement, the IEA, your organization, Fatih, has told us that the global transition needs to move 4 times faster than our current pace. And this, of course, presents a significant challenge. Yet we've seen that a concerted effort can drive down the cost of new technologies. With the market growth driving innovation, the cost of UK offshore wind, for example, has fallen by over 70% since 2012. And this national achievement has also been a global success story. Today, MHI Vestas, a Japanese-Danish joint venture, is making turbines on the Isle of Wight in the United Kingdom. Siemens Gamesa, a German-Spanish company, is doing the same in the northern city of Hull. And not far away from Hull in Grimsby, the Danish company Ørsted has set up the world's largest offshore wind operations and maintenance center. And whilst of the northeast coast of the UK, SSE and Equinor from the UK and Norway respectively are building the world's largest offshore wind development. And this will be able to power 4.5 million homes in the UK. Every country and company that has deployed renewable technologies has contributed to reducing their cost. And every time the global deployment of solar and wind power doubles, their costs have fallen by 28% and 15% respectively. Today, renewables are already cheaper than new coal power in 2/3 of all countries across the world. So ahead of COP26, I hope we can continue the global success story and work together to make progress even faster. We need to meet the goals of the Paris Agreement. We need to double the rate of global investment in clean power. International assistance, like the IEA's Clean Energy Transitions Program, can help develop the policies to drive this investment. The UK itself has invested over £1 billion in clean power programs in developing countries in the last 5 years, and other countries here today have made great contributions too. So thank you to everyone who's played their part. But we also know that new coal plants are still being built. We must all work together to ensure that every country considering new power generation, for them, clean power is the most attractive option. Alongside this, we must accelerate the shift away from the 2,000 gigawatt of coal plants that are already operating. And the UK is leading by example in this case. Between April and June this year, we went 67 days without using coal power. We're committed to ending our use of coal power by 2024. And the 104 members of the Powering Past Coal Alliance share the goal of phasing out coal power. The Alliance has helped ensure that 1/3 of the OECD's coal power capacity is now scheduled to close. And to go further, we must support coal-dependent countries to achieve that just transition. And this means going beyond technical assistance in the power sector and scaling up support for new investment, jobs, and development in coal-dependent communities. And if we continue to innovate, we will continue to open up new opportunities. Last year, the UK announced the £1 billion Ayrton Fund to help developing countries access cutting-edge energy technologies. This will help provide affordable access to electricity for the 840 million people who lack it. And finally, we must not forget that in every sector, energy efficiency can save costs, can cut emissions, and of course, raise productivity. We have recently increased our funding for the IEA's Super Efficient Equipment and Appliance Deployment Initiative, where governments are working together to ramp up efficiency standards for appliances such as air conditioners, refrigerators, and of course, lighting. And I'd invite all of you to join us in this effort. So ladies and gentlemen, ahead of COP26, we must continue to work together to make progress even faster, lowering carbon emissions, cutting energy costs, raising people's quality of life, and creating new jobs and opportunities across the world. Thank you.
Mr. Sharma, can I ask you one very quick question, if I may? I think many of us here, I see, went to many COP meetings. I see, for example, Laurence Toubiana just joined us, who was one of the architects of Paris Agreement, or my friend Stefan Singer from Climate Action Network. We went to many COP meetings. What is different? What can we expect different from COP26 compared to previous COP meetings? And I see also Teresa Ribera here, who hosted the previous COP meeting. Mr. Sharma, please.
Well, I think, Fadi, one of the things I'd say is that what's been great is getting the advice and collaboration from other colleagues who've been involved in previous COPs, and I found that incredibly valuable to have that link. But indeed, you know, what are we building on? So we're going to be 5 years on from the Paris Agreement, and COP26 actually represents that landmark moment. You know, we're all talking globally around a green recovery, and I think we're at that inflection point now where you have big corporates, you have civil society, you have non-state actors, you've got governments, all coming together to want the same thing, which is this green recovery. So I think what we must reach is that negotiated outcome that finalizes the Paris rulebook. And of course, as I said, we want all countries to come forward with ambition for their 2030 climate action plans. ultimately, this is about us working together, and we need to show that we are making real progress. And frankly, the current generation and future generations deserve nothing less.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sharma. We have all the confidence and the support for your COP26. IEA, we have 300 worldwide known experts, energy experts here. We are very much looking forward to support you, Mr. Sharma, for this very important goal of COP26 and beyond, of course. So, dear colleagues, we are spot on. I mean, exactly, we wanted to finish at this time with agenda. We have now 3 high-level sessions. The first one is on the innovation, which is going to be chaired by the Norwegian minister, Minister Bru, and she's here. Thank you very much, Madam Minister. And Minister Jobe of Chile, another host of COP last year. Then we have another session on the inclusive recovery. It has been discussed a lot, many ministers mentioned, and this high-level panel will be chaired by the Canadian minister, a very active Canadian minister, Minister O'Regan, and my good friend, Minister Rabah of Morocco. And the third and the final high-level panel is going to be chaired by the European Union Commissioner, Mrs. Simpson, and also with the Thai Minister, Minister Sontajaravong. And we are going to meet in 1 hour back here for the closing session. And I would suggest that for those of you participating via Zoom, you will be automatically directed to the panel that you have pre-selected. For those of you following via live stream, please go to the IEA website and select the appropriate link to the panel you wish to follow. Please enjoy the discussions, and let's return promptly to the finishing plenary session. Thank you very much.